Good afternoon, everyone. This is really our chance to really touch, my teeth are orange, I'm noticing, to touch base with our members, to give an update of things because we have been communicating a ton and we are covering so many bases that we want to make sure our members are aware of that, but secondarily, to be able to get feedback from our members as well. So we do want to make today's Knowledge at Noon conversational. You can use the chat box pop up at the bottom, or certainly raise your hand if you have any questions as related to something Michael, Robert, or I are going to present. And so I'm going to create the lay of the land. As we are now about 4 weeks in, the chamber went to telecommuting. I think it was 4 weeks from today or yesterday. And we are trying to operate under the same new norm for right now. Our services have not been interrupted in any way. And we are real proud of that. These Knowledge at Noon series are open to members and non-members alike, because we know that not every business obviously is not a chamber member, but we are all still feeling that same pain regardless. And so this is our way of trying to give back to the community to get that level of expertise and information out to anyone that needs it. We've started to get a little bit creative because we know people are anxious to be able to connect with each other. So we do have our chamber exchange is still ongoing, except it's now on the comfort of your own home patio or a couch. And with the beverage in hand, able to touch base with those that you're used to seeing throughout your regular business day. And we'll continue to promote those things. Information. So both Robert and Michael have been working to be experts a little bit in different ways, the high level expert to be able to direct our members to those different resources. Robert has actively engaged with the state as well as our federal partners to be able to get that information, and then more importantly, be able to feed information the other direction. We've actively been lobbying. He'll go into some of that on different things that we've heard from our business partners. And then Michael has been doing the same at the local level as well. Our team is still fully engaged, so your account representative is still the same. Valerie, I see, is on here, and she is your small business coordinator. And then Carrie and Jason and Adam are working with those other higher levels to connect and make those connections. And Adam is certainly the one for information to be able to, if you want to grow your membership, or you know a business that will be able to really gain some value out of the different services that we are offering. Make sure to check out our website. We've got our whole page of just deals available. And that's where members have been able to say, hey, I've lowered the price of this, and I think that it would be helpful. An example would be Cox Media is offering some different advertising rates for restaurants that I think almost maybe even free, to be able to help that industry that has been particularly hit. So certainly check that out. And even if you have a deal, let us know that as well. And well, like I said, I want this to be conversational back and forth. So I'm just going to leave it right there and turn it over to Michael to address some things. And then we'll go to Robert, and then we'll open it up to Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As Amber said, a lot of our things are somewhat business as usual, and I'll kind of go into a little bit of that. But we're obviously addressing all of the issues that businesses are facing due to the pandemic. So I'm going to try this here. Where am I? Oh, here we are. Sorry, everyone.
If everyone can't read Michael's board, he has created a spring 2020 playlist starting with I Can't Touch This, Don't Stand So Close to Me, and I can't read that one.
That one is Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd.
If you don't follow him on Facebook, there are many other suggestions that can go along with his theme.
So I apologize. I put together a PowerPoint. Now I can't put it on the screen. So I'll just kind of talk about some of the things that that we're working on, or that I'm focused on. So first off, we are working with our partners in Maricopa County, and specifically with PEI, which is an organization that is standing up Pipeline AZ. This is a tool, it's a web tool that connects job seekers with employment opportunities. They also have aspects of the program that help to close skills gaps and line people up with case managers who can assist them with upskilling and a variety of other assets. They have been running Pipeline AZ for about the past 9 months, and it's been going well. They've made a lot of connections up in the Phoenix area, but obviously a few weeks ago, all bets were off. But what we are trying to do from a proactive standpoint, because we know that there are still companies out there that are hiring. We obviously know that there are a lot of job seekers needing employment, and so we are standing up a new site called covid19.pipelineaz.com. This is a platform specific to the current pandemic. It is sort of taking the Pipeline AZ platform and accelerating it so that we can get job seekers placed more expediently into open opportunities, as well as some other things that are involved in the platform. This is something that we just announced last week. They have extended this program down to Pima County, and just since Thursday, we've had 30 companies load positions, and we've had over 150 job seekers upload their profiles. So this is in tandem, by the way, with, because I know Evelyn Wright is from Pima County is on the call. This is in tandem with our work with Pima County One Stop. In fact, what we are going to be doing next is bringing in the Pima County One Stop, Job Path, CPLC, Chicanos por la Causa, and Goodwill. And we are going to have those organizations learn the ins and outs of this program, because those organizations in particular can act as case managers for individuals seeking help. So they will be helping to navigate them through the process, as well as giving them some other information they need through the job seeking process. So we are going to be holding a training session with those organizations next week. But again, this is something that we want to do from a proactive standpoint to make sure that we are not just sitting by the sidelines, that we are looking for ways and methods to make sure that we are fully addressing the issues that exist out there for our businesses and for the citizens of this community. So what's great about this too is that Amber has been wanting to bring this particular technology down to Pima County for some time. And this kind of hits the gas pedal in terms of bringing this to Pima County. Obviously, this is more of, like I said, an expedited form, but it is also in the future going to be something that we will be able to offer with many, many more bells and whistles. And we think it's going to be a great tool for employers and job seekers alike. And we'll be working with many partners to do that. Uh, the next thing I would shift to is kind of the business as usual standpoint. About 5 months ago, uh, we stood up a steering committee, and the steering committee is made up of individuals, members from our higher educational institutions, our training partners, some of our industry leaders, particularly in IT, construction, um, aerospace and defense, transportation logistics, some of our targeted industries. And we have been in the development of a workforce blueprint. Now there are a lot of workforce programs that exist in our community. We work very well with a lot of those workforce programs. But this in particular is a way for us, the Chamber, to work with all of our workforce partners, with our targeted industries, to develop a platform or a blueprint that will help better identify the Chamber's role in workforce development and the programs that we can stand up to assist our members and the business community writ large. So we are continuing to work on that. We continue to meet. In fact, just yesterday, we sent out a survey as part of that blueprint process, which all of you should have received. And that survey was modified. It was definitely different from what we originally were going to send out, because we wanted to ask some questions that were pertinent to what businesses are experiencing due to the pandemic. But we sent that survey out yesterday. We're already starting to see some of those responses. But if you haven't responded, we would love to have you respond so that we can collect those responses and better inform the blueprint process. We plan to get the steering committee back together at the end of the month to review those responses and continue to work on our recommendations. Beyond that, we locally, because I know Robert's going to address more of the state and federal aspect of what we're doing. Locally, there are some things that we've been able to stand up in working with the various jurisdictions. First off, as you're seeing, if you're going to get takeout or takeout at some of your favorite restaurants, you're probably seeing a lot more signage out there. We were able to work with the jurisdictions to suspend the regulations and the fee collections for temporary signs. So we wanted to make sure the businesses had that ability. So whether it's a banner or an A-frame or other varieties of temporary signs, we have helped to lift those some of those regulations, so the businesses can advertise what they have a little bit more, because we want to make sure that they continue to get business as limited as that business is these days. Secondly, we have been working with the city of Tucson, the town of Oro Valley, and Pima County for the last year or two on impact fees. Every 5 years, jurisdictions update their impact fees. So it's no surprise that we would be working on it at this point in time. However, we are seeing some shifts due to the pandemic. And the city of Tucson has recently announced, and they're going to be voting on this officially next Tuesday's mayor and council meeting, that they will be keeping the impact fees flat for the next 2 years. They're actually looking to make reductions in some residential fees, as well as keep the reductions that were proposed for industrial and a couple other non-residential categories. So all categories are going to be kept flat, except for those that I mentioned that are actually going to be reduced for the next 2 years. At that point in time, we will then revisit it. So that is good news, and it certainly recognizes the state of those particular industries, and trying to make sure that as we do recover, those industries will be able to do so without potentially increased fees. We're going to be talking with Pima County and Oro Valley next to see if they are willing to make some of the same make some of the same decisions based on what the city of Tucson is doing. We are also working with many of our partners, particularly in the healthcare industry, as well as the tourism industry. The city of Tucson is standing up, the industries are standing up a portal, and it's actually hcwhosted.org. This is something that we've been working on collaboratively with all those industries that I mentioned. And it stands for healthcareworkershosted.org. This is a way to link individuals, whether it's medical staff or individuals that need to be quarantined for this point in time that have been affected by the pandemic, into respite housing at a variety of hotels. We actually have 40 hotels that have been that have agreed to either significantly reduce or, in a few cases, provide free respite housing for individuals affected by the pandemic. This is a great example of Tucsonans working together to address issues, particularly at a grassroots and collaborative manner. This has been very fast and furious. It's amazing how quickly things like this have come to the forefront, and sites like this have been developed. But we all know that we need to take swift action in times of need. And there are a lot of medical staff members who, for obvious reasons, don't want to go back to their families to potentially infect them. So we're working on a variety of ways to assist with that. That is what I have at this point in time. I know I have a couple other updates, and I'll see if I can try to figure out how I can present this thing so it can trigger my memory. But those are the big ticket items that we're working on right now to try to keep things going. To try to have high-level discussions to make sure that as we recover, that we are ready for that recovery, that we're trying to employ the right strategies for that recovery, and that we all work together to come out of this as healthy as we possibly can be.
And what I want to highlight on some of this is we've really been working to identify industries. We were doing that prior to this, and Michael really referenced that with the blueprint and with pipeline. And our core, starting with those, were healthcare, construction, manufacturing, IT, and technology. But even separate from that, those discussions triggered additional efforts. So we have the healthcare roundtable, which is tackling different workforce issues, but clearly we've been having some different conversations now due to COVID-19, and we've been able to be a resource for that industry and trying to get PPE and some other things. And of course, staffing is going to be a significant thing as well. There's been a lot of layoffs through certain different types of healthcare offices, but then there has been high demand hiring in others. So that's been great to be plugged in there. Construction, same thing. We have the construction sector partnership with having those conversations. And now we're about to launch another one. And this is for our friends in the restaurant and hospitality industry. We are going to have, we're starting the Restaurant Advisory Council. And that will also include some special membership pricing for those that have been absolutely hit the hardest, the fastest. And so Michael will be leading that effort. We have our chair is Ray Flores from Flores Concepts and the El Charo family. And vice chair is Wendy from Chef Chic. One of our She is a caterer, chef, and just opened a new restaurant about 2 months ago. And we will be inviting partners around the table. I see that one of our board members, Felipe Garcia, is on this call, and he doesn't even know it, but he'll be joining that advisory council as well, so that we can really make sure that we have those leaders in restaurant and hospitality around that table. And we're going to come up with some creative solutions, one related to food safety, making sure to communicate out to the community that our restaurants are following the rules and make sure that they are educated on that process to make sure restaurant food is safe food. We have to keep ordering. The staffing as well, best practices for cleaning, special pricing. I mean, we are going to really be working on all of these different aspects that is on high demand for the restaurant industry. As more demand in additional industries rise to the top, we will tackle them. Another one that we've been working with right now is manufacturing. We've been convening our manufacturers and tying them into our congressional members because there is an active effort out there to do a couple of different things. Being able to create certain widgets for ventilators and creating those partnerships so that manufacturers that are nimble enough to be able to retool some of their operations to satisfy some of these high demand needs right now. And then secondarily, how do they access capital? You know, so we've been making those different connections in that industry as well, which we are really proud to say we haven't seen hit as hard as others. And so as we have meetings like this and hear more, then we will continue to communicate that out.
Thank you, Amber. I'm glad I sent you and Robert my PowerPoint so you could pull it up and remind me what I wanted to talk about. But I did see there was a question in the chat from Barbie asking the non-residential that are going to go down. I can tell you that light industrial is going to remain the same as 2014. Manufacturing will go down slightly. Warehousing will go down significantly. It's almost going to be cut in half. Retail will stay the same. General office will go down by about a half. Schools will go down by about a third. And religious facilities will go down by about 2/3, as well as a medical and clinic hospital. Sorry, medical, nursing home and assisted living will go down by 2/3. Clinic and hospital will stay the same, and hotels will go down by about a half. So there are definitely some areas where we're going to see some either leveling off, staying the same for the next 2 years, or significant reductions.
Robert?
Wasn't sure if Michael was done or not. So good morning or good afternoon, I guess. Nice to see all your shining faces. I'll talk about the state first. The state legislature adjourned the last day of March. They passed what's been deemed a skinny budget, which is essentially baseline budget from last year to continue on. They have not recessed. I was on a meeting earlier and someone said they were done. They are not. They were slated to go back into session on Monday, and they extended the recess indefinitely. They will have to come back to adjourn, or sine die as it's known in Arizona. So right now everything's up in arms. The projections on the fiscal budget were presented last Thursday afternoon at the Financial Advisory Committee. As you can imagine, they were not good. They took a lot of heat over them, mostly because it's a complete projection. It's taking a snapshot and saying this is what the rest of the year is going to look like. Their projection was that Arizona would be $1.2 billion in the hole next fiscal year due to lower tax receipts, and we would end this year slightly under as well, where this year we're expected to end on June 30th with a sizable surplus. The governor completely ripped them a new one. to put it politely, about the projections and using scare tactics. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. It's going to depend on how long the stay-at-home order goes, and until you can get the economy back up and going and having cash exchanging hands, that's what creates the revenues for the state. And so we'll stay tuned on that. Definitely follow that. You talk to the legislators. Many of them kind of fall the same way. It's they're either one end or the other. There's a handful that are in the middle going, we just need to get back to work, and it'll be a big hiccup, but we can move past it. The unemployment numbers for March that came out and were announced, obviously, that were announced in March had unemployment in the state at 4.5%. It was a slight tick down from I think just 0.1%. The new numbers that will reflect March's unemployment claims will be coming out either the 15th or the 16th of this month. Expect a dramatic increase, just like we've seen at the national level. I think there's already been 350,000 plus unemployment insurance claims. So you'll see that number drastically rise. The hope, as we were talking before the meeting started, many of the restaurants have closed and they have furloughed their employees or laid them off. That once things open back up, obviously they'll have to rehire. They'll go back to the employees that they furloughed first, and then go back to maybe some of the ones that were laid off and get them back into the workplace. So it should be hopefully a blip, however long the stay-at-home orders last. And then we will see unemployment drop dramatically over the next few weeks after that. So any questions on the state things before I move on to the federal? Nope. Okay. Just want to check. So obviously federal is where a lot of the media attention's been. It's also where a lot of the efforts to help the economy, small business owner, the employees, everything has been focused. Congress has done 3 major actions since March 1st. The first was what was known as phase 1. That was HR 6074. It's the coronavirus preparedness and response supplemental appropriations. Provided $8.3 billion in emergency funding to federal agencies that would be dealing with the at that time what they thought was an outbreak. Had to do with developing a vaccine, medical supplies, kind of the first thing to get things moving. The next garnered a lot of attention. It was HR 6201, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This was phase 2. This is when you started seeing people, the state shutting down initially, and people being sick and all of a sudden need to be quarantined for 15 days. This provides 2 weeks paid sick leave across the board. Made a few other changes to the FMLA, extension of the 2/3 pay for a longer term if you have to take care of a family member or a child. It also expanded the definition of both of those things. So even if you weren't sick but you needed to be under quarantine, you were covered by the 2-week extension of the paid sick leave, and as well as Family Medical Leave Act covering as schools were closing. If you needed to stay home as a parent, had no other option, you could switch to you fall under the FMLA protections of and receive the 2/3 pay for I think 12 weeks minimum on top of what was already offered. So that, and then also extended some funding to Medicaid. So a lot in that on kind of the safety net that we already had as a country existing. The phase 3 obviously was the big one for small business in general, and also for unemployment. That was HR 748, the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. This was the $2.2 trillion bill that went through. The most important aspect out of it for small business was the Paycheck Protection Program. This allowed you to request what is deemed essentially at first a loan to cover the salaries up to $100,000 a year salaries for your employees to basically continue to make sure they're on the payroll. So to keep them out of unemployment, not laying people off, not furloughing them. And if you kept your employees for 90 days after taking that loan, it turned into a grant. And there's a few other stipulations with it. But the idea was a loan up front that if you kept people on your payroll and continue to pay their salary, even if they weren't working and your business was closed, especially due to a mandated shutdown, that the government's basically paying those employees. So instead of them going to the unemployment insurance route, just straight through their normal paycheck and same amount from the business. The CARES Act also included a few other $1 billion for specific industries. Shouldn't be surprised to anyone. No one is flying anywhere right now. And to give you an idea, TSA reported last week, I believe, no 2 days in a row, I think they ended up reporting 3 days, less than 100,000 people went through a TSA checkpoint. That's over a 95% reduction. So the airlines have gotten a significant amount of money to continue operations. They obviously have ongoing maintenance needs to make sure the planes are ready to fly once people start taking travel again for particularly business, and pleasure travel will follow. The CARES Act also added $600 a week on top of what state already offered for unemployment insurance. This was really meant to make up on the national average the difference of what unemployment insurance offered and what people's paycheck would be. So it was directed towards those who had already been laid off or furloughed that were claiming uninsurance. That now they would get a larger bump and be closer to what their take-home salary was to lessen the economic burden on Americans. Without a doubt, the Paycheck Protection Program has had a rough start. It's frustrating. I can only imagine it's frustrating for the small business owners that have applied and were denied the first time, or they're still waiting for the money to be transferred. It was a $2.2 trillion bill written in about 2.5 weeks. The rollout is rocky. There weren't a lot of guidance and stipulations for the SBA, who was put in charge of the Paycheck Protection Program. They're defaulting to some of their already existing rules and stipulations and requirements for the loans. That wasn't the intent by Congress and the president with the PPP. And so that is getting worked out, and you're seeing pretty much every day clarifying memos or updates to the SBA's webpage and the Department of Treasury's webpage on the PPP program. So businesses did start to receive checks late last week. I've yet to hear of a local one, so if anybody knows of one, let me know. I'd really like to just talk to them and find out how the process went, who they went with. I've talked to a few of the financial institutions. They definitely hit a rocky start. They were given the final guidelines at about 9 p.m. local the day before businesses could start applying. So that wasn't fun to deal with for them. Many of them ended up taking over the weekend from April 3rd into Monday, Tuesday the next week. So in the final part of the CARES Act was the direct relief payments to taxpayers. This is the $1,200 up to anyone making $75,000, and then it is for every $100 more you make, you subtract off $5 from that payment up to $99,000, or combine those to $150,000 up to $198,000 for joint filers, and then an extra $500 per child. I don't know if the extra $500 is worth it, having my 2.5-year-old at home the last 4 weeks, but we'll see. So that's kind of the first three things they've done. If you've watched the news, there's a lot of talk about the phase 4. It's really morphed into phase 3.5. The PPP program is slated to run out of money this Friday was the projections. Obviously that's changing every day with people applying and the payments going out. So if you haven't done it already, or you need to do it, and if you know someone who's thinking about him and all, they need to get the application in to get it done. So at least if it does run out, they're in and they're just waiting for more money to be appropriated. They would then be at the front of the line when they get a bill through. Obviously, it's stuck in the gridlock, which is very unfortunate. you can cut it about 20 different ways of why, but it's centering around more money for small business, more money for those that are unemployed, and more money for the hospitals and caretakers, medical supplies during this time. So a deal will be reached. It's just going to jump through a bunch of hoops and stress everybody out and cause a bunch of drama for no reason. And then phase 4 is really focused on getting the economy back going. The president and Congress for a long time have wanted to do a major infrastructure package. When I say major, we're talking about $2 trillion in infrastructure. It's road, rail, ship, plane, transit. They'd like to see that somewhere along the line. It's probably not going to be in phase 4. There'll probably be a phase 5 or 6 bill later on in the summer once more people can get out and work. But that would be great. That's something the chamber, or really chambers and the U.S. Chamber, have advocated for a while now, about the last 3 years of a major infrastructure package. I think it's easy to expect the relief payments to individual taxpayers to probably happen again. Who knows what that dollar amount will be, but it'll happen again. I think that covers it. I know that's a lot of information, so forgive me, but that's really where we are. I don't know, Jill, you're on. If you have anything you'd like to add about the PPP program, being on the side of helping people, or Joel, if you've done anything at Midwest.
Sorry, had to unmute there for a second there, Robert.
Hey, Joel.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. At least how the PPP was rolled out, it definitely was a bit of a rough start, but I think we're all trying to get our hands around it and help as many people as possible. I think the information that came from most banks was that they were looking to help their existing clients first. Unfortunately, how you look at it, we were in the same boat until about last Thursday. Our processing team, our analysts and underwriters got through our whole loan portfolio very quickly. So we have since opened up to taking applications to non-customers.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. We're taking applications from customers and non-customers and working through all of those. Thankfully, the SBA system has been a little bit better this week. It was crashing multiple times last week as banks were trying to submit applications to get the all-important, what they call an E-Tran number. Once you have that number, it's effectively approved by the SBA and the funds are reserved so that we can go ahead and fund the loans. But the banks didn't hire any more people to process these loans. We still have the same amount of staff at banks that we did before the crisis. So the banks have to verify the information that the customers send in. So we do have to have eyeballs on each individual application. So as you can imagine, with thousands and thousands of businesses and no more bank employees, we've pulled everybody off of, tellers, store managers, no matter what your job title is at the bank, you're reviewing these. But again, please be patient. We're getting through them and we're getting them funded.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you both for that perspective. So, and I finally remember to look at the chat side. Great to hear that a couple local companies got their applications in and are just wait and have their loan number assigned stuff. So that's great. College students were not included in this. That is partly because of the Affordable Care Act. You can claim the students up to, I don't remember what age, is it 24? So
26.
26, thank you. So that is part of the issue. The other is if they're working full time. So I think to say college students is hard, because if I was a college student right now, a nighttime student, I still have a job that would be where I'd be getting the benefits from, and a lot of one size doesn't fit all when you say college students. So I think that's part of the issue, that they weren't called out specifically in the bill. That may change moving forward with so many campuses shutting down, or definitely moving to online instruction now of what type of resources may be there to help. And I think education in general is going to be addressed in a probably the phase 4 package. So not the next one, the one after, of what type of need they have. And if you talk to the different institutions, obviously they're hurting. They've had to make a giant switch in how they deliver instruction. And then on the local side, most school districts are a function of the state. So the state, the resources that have been given to the state and how those will trickle down to education. But if, just one quick plug, a lot of the schools are still hurting for computers, laptops, iPads. So if you have anything you're not using and you don't want, call up your local school and see if they can willing to take the donation. I know we got rid of 2 of our old iPads we never used. They're old. I didn't think they could use them. They said they could. So just that quick plug. The financial information, you can find it on the Chamber's COVID-19 resources. Also, we sent out an email. Amber, do you remember, was it the 2nd of April or the 1st of April? We sent an all email out about the Paycheck Protection Program and how that was going to work. And it went over that and the EIDL loan expansion, which that program's also basically run out of money. I don't know the name of anyone accepting at TSD for the program. I'm sorry.
And Andrew's on. Andrew Bevington, do you happen to have information on collections of laptops or any of that for the schools?
Barbie just said EEF. Is that the Educational Enrichment Foundation? Okay. So that would be where for TUSD. But, all right, Amber, that's all I got, man.
Sorry, Amber.
Robert, I'm sorry.
I was dealing with the front door, but I don't have any information about laptop or iPad donations, but I can check with Dustin and get back to you.
Great, and that's probably some communications we should send out and on our social media. Some things I do know the different districts are working towards that effort. And I think that Michael even highlighted a lot of the connections we are trying to make. We have on here Adam Bagodi, our account executive, was able to connect a grocery store who had, I think it was Walmart, expiring dog food that they were no longer allowed to sell. He connected it over to the Humane Society. And so really, we are air traffic controlling as much information as we can. That is our job as the connector and catalyst in the community to try to do that. And we will continue to. So you can even just send information if you're not sure who to reach out to at the Chamber at info@tucsonchamber.org. Shirley receives that email and she'll certainly know where to pass on that connection. And again, while we are a nonprofit as well, it is our job as stewards of the community to try to assist businesses as best as we can, whether they are members or not. And we certainly are hoping that businesses are members because we do have our own payroll and staff to be able to support businesses, but we certainly want to be able to make those connections and support businesses of all sizes the best that we can. And Joe, you're hilarious. If anyone's missing the comments over here, Evelyn provided some good information from Pima County One Stop. And then Joe was exploring the different options for dinner as well.
Can I say
Robert,
something?
Robert, I had a quick question on your unemployment insurance bump to the $600.
Yeah,
Is that for a limited time period or is it unlimited?
No, it's a limited time period. I'd have to go back and look at, I don't remember off the top of my head the number of weeks extension. I want to say it was like a 13-week extension. So it on top of what your state already offered. So it is a significant bump in unemployment. So I think once we start getting back to things open up and businesses are looking to hire, in Arizona, DES will start scrutinizing the having to look for work component of UE. But right now, all the states, every state has made it very clear that they understand the situation and aren't holding people's feet to the fire on that side. Somebody else have a question?
I think Evelyn had a comment.
I just wanted to share that if any of the companies that are located inside the city of Tucson have any employees that need training, I've got money that we can spend on training. It can be anything they want. Right now, New Horizons is working with us to do any kind of training from real entry-level computers to cybersecurity. And the cool thing is I'm at the end of the grant where I can spend more per individual trained. So if anybody's got an employee that needs training right now, have them just contact me at that email address I put on, and we'll be happy to pay for it. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What else, folks? Anyone? And if you are talking, make sure to unmute yourself.
I would just also mention that one of our partners too is Rio Nuevo, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen the assistance they've been providing to businesses. Now, in Rio Nuevo's case, they need to be located within the district, which is the majority of downtown, as well as all the businesses that align Broadway from downtown to Park Place Mall. But they're offering a number of programs that assist those businesses to obtain SBA loans and other federal and state programs, as well as now they're getting into providing mini grants for a lot of those businesses as well. So I think we're just seeing a lot of examples of the community, really coming up with some creative solutions to assist business at this time. And I know Amber's also been talking with some other organizations to come up with additional solutions for the community as a whole.
This is Mark Mendibus. I had a question, more of a question / comment. In regards to that technical grant, we have a couple members that we are currently serving who might be able to take advantage of that technical grant, which was just mentioned. How can Workability take advantage of that technical grant? Because we have specifically 5 or 6 members who have bachelor's degrees in technical sciences, and my co-workers are desperately looking for placements in the technical industry, specifically web development.
Okay. One Stop has 2 programs. This particular grant program is for people that are working at a company that's inside Tucson. This is for incumbent workers. But
yes,
One Stop also has another program for workers that are low income under the federal guidelines for the last few months. We're funded by the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act of Congress, and we can pay for training, ongoing training. It needs to be short-term, but sometimes short-term can be just under 2 years. It can be for training in many different fields. The goal of it is that it leads them to productive employment. And so anybody that's interested can contact One Stop right now. And we can, and that I can put that number up in a moment. And also the grant that I just mentioned is for incumbent workers. So if somebody's not working right now, they can get under what we call the WIOA grant that I just mentioned.
Right.
And for people that are working, that are making under 1719, the managers can call me and I'll be happy to set up an appointment with them to talk about training for their workers.
I'm sorry, could you send out a link to both of those, please? I'd
Sure.
like
I can give you the phone numbers for both of those.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I looked up, clarified the extension of the unemployment insurance covers 4 months on top of the state.
Thanks, Robert.
Michael brought up an effort that I should have mentioned. And again, it's those financial resources. So there is a braided community effort right now of taking different approaches and being able to relieve both nonprofits and small businesses. So one, the city of Tucson, Mayor Romero launched her resiliency fund, which I believe is partially being funded by the IDA. Larry could speak to their role in that. He's nodding along, yes. And so Larry's actually the chair of that. So we need to thank him for the collaboration and leadership there. And they are creating the guidelines for nonprofits and small businesses to be able to apply for grants and loans, Larry, loans included?
It's primarily a loan program that if there are some SBA resources that are able to be matched up with it, those are probably going to be grants. But if I may expand on it slightly, I didn't want to add to the length of the meeting, but the IDA has worked very closely with the city of Tucson to identify some dollars. We provided $500,000 of additional loan assistance for any of our small businesses that are within the city limits to try to get them through this crisis. In addition, we have another $500,000 that are in a revolving loan fund that the city has asked us to manage with them. So that's $1 million. Plus there's and I don't know if this is taking official action, it's part of their council meeting, they're gonna add another $500,000 to that. So from the get-go, we're working with $1.5 million at least targeted towards women and minority owned within the city limits. Some of the more difficult ones that the loan applications that Joel and Jill probably are not going to be able to deal with because they're so small. These people are looking for, 3, 4, 10, 15,000. And so that's where we're trying to fill that gap and working very closely with all the folks over at the city. So it's been quite an effort, and I can appreciate Jill and Joel's comments because our folks at Business Development Finance Corp, our advisor that supports the IDA, are really working very hard locally to deliver as much help as they can. So thanks for the opportunity to comment on that.
So that's for the city, and then that's a partnership as well with the Community Foundation. Community Foundation has also set up their own funds for nonprofit resources to be able to get some assistance. And then we are in partnership with the Community Investment Corps, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that offers grants and loans to small businesses as well. And we have a separate fundraising piece of that with there are weekly Saturday night entertainment. Certainly follow our social media to get that. It's called the Tucson Helping Tucson. So we're fundraising into a bucket so that we can offer small grants in the amount of about $2,500 in grants, and then extremely low interest loans up to a certain amount. And really the genius of CIC is it has the ability to be as flexible as we can in setting up what those programs look like. We want to make sure to offer those grants and loans to those that might not qualify through SBA or through the Resiliency Fund or through the Community Foundation. We want to make sure that all those cracks are filled. And it's we would love to be able to raise $500,000. Unfortunately, we don't see that happening, but we are certainly fundraising specifically, and CIC would be the steward of those funds to then go through the official grant and loan process. So any company that has a few dollars to be able to donate to them, again, they are 501c3. We would appreciate that so we can then pay it forward for those small businesses. So again, that is a braided effort across the community to be able to try to cover all of those bases. Any final comments or questions, Barbie?
Probably a good way to wrap it up, and that's just to say I can't tell you how proud I am of this entire chamber team, and I know Amber is too, but you have risen to the occasion in adversity, and it's a time when nimble and agile leadership is evident, and it's evident when it's not there, and the chamber has rallied. You are all working incredibly hard. We're grateful. The business community is totally interrelated with the human condition, with the economy. We're all impacted, and we couldn't do it without the energy and the expertise that you all bring together. So thank you.
Well, I'm
Yes,
proud to see so many board members that are on this presentation as well. All right, guys. I think that we will close it out. Thank you guys all so much. Carol, what's our topic tomorrow?
We do not have a knowledge at noon
That's right.
tomorrow. However, we do have speed networking at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Our knowledge at noon will continue on Thursday with a cooking class with Wendy Gauthier from Chef Chic. So we're excited about that. We've got some great topics coming up the rest of this week and next week. So please get online and sign up.
I have, this is Mark Mendivlis. I have a follow-up question. I missed some of this information because my speakers have been going in and out. Is there any way I can get a copy of this recording to go over and share some of this information with my colleagues? We are currently serving
For knowledge at noon's Mark, so you can certainly get online and look up any one of the topics that we've already had a meeting on, and we will continue to do that.
Okay, is there a specific link to these conversations?
I believe it is just on our website, but let me verify on that.
Mark, it's on the at www.tucsonchamber.org/COVID-19. And there is a specific button on there that says webinars. And so
Okay.
all of our saved ones go right there, as well as upcoming ones.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you guys all. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.